Well, after 10 years of being a dedicated iPhone user, I've made the switch to the Google Pixel 2 XL. And the reasons why I made the switch are not reasons that I think you'll conventionally find on all the tech channels. First of all, I had something really weird happen to my Apple ID. I have two-factor authentication, and that ID was still stolen, and products were purchased in spite of apparently having all of the security that Apple is so known for. And so that broke something that as a long-term user was very important to me. Another frustrating thing that happened to me was with regard to my iPhone 6 Plus specifically. Namely, this was a phone that was definitely affected by Apple's decision a couple months ago to slow down the older phones to allow them to update regularly. This is the first time that this had happened in my history of owning iPhones in 10 years where my performance was noticeably worse. Not only just slower, but certain apps just didn't seem to work as well. Apps that I used a lot, in particular, I actually do all of my post-production or I did do all of my post-production on iMovie on my iPhone up until this point, and as soon as Apple rolled out these updates, I couldn't do that anymore. There were problems. I had trouble getting videos onto iMovie. And there were a number of other apps that just were laggy and crashing more and problematic. And again, this was one of the distinctive features that kept me in the Apple ecosystem for so long. And it just didn't seem like it was there anymore. This got me looking at Android devices more seriously. And this is a second reason that I'm going to summarize. I think it's something that the whole industry has acknowledged, but I'm going to just put it in layman's terms in a way that a lot of the tech reviewers are not really putting it. Namely, all the hardware and software is caught up on Android devices. The Pixel 2 XL competes in every respect with Apple's iPhone 8 and even the iPhone 10 in some critical ways. Obviously, I'm thinking of the camera as well as file management. Of course, you have all access to Google's cloud now, and even the iCloud is dependent on Google, as we found out. And so I realized that there had to be really something setting Apple apart in order for me to want to look at their products. And it seems like that difference just isn't present anymore. Even from a design standpoint, I absolutely love the Pixel 2 XL. This is the Panda version, of course, in terms of bringing a fresh and fun feature set, both in terms of hardware. It's a very feature-laden device, but also in terms of the Android experience. Here's a weird reason that I was driven specifically to the Pixel 2 XL, namely that it's a flagship phone that does not have wireless charging. And here's why I don't like wireless charging as a guy who generally uses his phones for a couple years. All of the wireless charging phones now are proven to be more fragile. They have glass backs, so it's kind of common sense. And if you look at channels dedicated to testing durability, Jury Rig Everything in particular is a channel that I watch closely, they just are not holding up as well as traditionally constructed phones. And the Pixel 2 XL, maybe it's the last of its kind of a flagship phone that does not have a glass back primarily. Obviously, this is ceramic up here. And so my experience with this phone is that it is less prone to serious damage with drops. Fast charging with USB-C is incredible. I can get a 75% charge on this thing in no time, in like a half an hour. And I just don't feel the need to have wireless charging at all. So given my frustration with Apple's updates and service and the fact that it seems like Android devices have caught up in both hardware and software, the third thing that finally drove me over to Android was the, in my opinion, hubris of Apple's pricing. So basically, you can no longer buy a flagship Apple phone for under $1,000. In my opinion, that does not make sense. Why does it not make sense? Well, primarily because you can get Android devices that are flagship for significantly less. I got the Pixel 2 XL with a $300 discount from Verizon, and it was about $500 out the door. Are you an Apple or an Android user? I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about what's keeping you in the Android family or the Apple family, or what made you go to the other side. For me, it was a very difficult process, and one that is tied with a lot of things connected with the gear ideas that I discuss on this channel. namely brand loyalty, quality of product. In a certain respect, my phone is my most used piece of gear, and so that's why I decided to make this video. I don't usually focus on tech on this channel, but the reasons that drove me to the Google Pixel 2 XL were not really primarily tech-driven reasons as much as it is about brand choices and the way that the industry is going, and also just a certain frustration with the way that Apple's been handling their products. I'd love to hear from you. What is keeping you in the Apple or Android family? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, please give me a subscription. I'd love that. If you enjoyed this discussion, give me a thumbs up. And as always, thanks a lot for watching. If I were to look into Android phones and particularly the Google